Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Fed Razak, Senior Trading Strategist here at CMTrading. And today is April 18, 2023, and today is Tuesday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, markets wavering. Lots of news coming out tomorrow and the next day, and also next week. We've got a lot of earning reports coming out. But first, looking at the major economic events of today. So at 2:30 South African time, out of Canada, we have a monthly CPI number coming out. And as we look at the various markets, starting out with the Forex symbols, the British pound actually has a nice little bounce this morning after a Claimant Count number came out. And looking at the indices, Dow Jones and the NASDAQ, really unchanged day to day. Looking at commodities, gold sitting on support, while oil really unchanged. And looking at the stocks, Bank of America following through on the upside as the rotation is happening in the sector of the banking sector. We saw JP Morgan last week. And lastly, looking at Bitcoin still dipping just below 30K. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So we're going to take a look at the British pound first. And as we can see, it's just bouncing just slightly from 123.60 to 124.19. Not a big move, but nevertheless, it's hanging and holding above that support-ish, resistance-ish level right here at this area. So this is really very important because that's a telling sign of what's going on. Now, looking at the Canadian dollar before this CPI number coming out, now it's gotten stronger versus the USD, closer to 133, and it's sitting right there. So this may be a turning point for the Canadian dollar. If it does break that 133, maybe go back to 131. That's an idea, okay? But keep an eye on this as this is unfolding later today. So jumping commodities, gold sitting at 2001 right now after having that nice little upwards momentum hanging out here, okay? So it's a good sign that it may still have some upwards momentum and possibly making new highs for the year. Now looking at crude oil, really unchanged at 81.80, and we're just teasing that 200-day moving average on a daily chart. And this is something I'm keeping an eye on because if it does pop higher, it will pop. Okay, that's just the way the nature of this thing happens. Now looking at the U.S. markets, really unchanged. I mean, 34,156. We were in a 30 to 40, 50 pip move. Okay, on the Dow Jones, and then we ended up the day up 100 points, but really day to day we didn't do much. Okay, if we look at the NASDAQ, also really not much doing there as well as the markets are consolidating. So this happens right before we're getting big news. Now this week and next week we've got a lot of earning requests, so this is something that I would consider to look at as going into next week. Now, looking at the individual stocks, if we look at the bank stocks, okay, first looking at JP Morgan, and then we'll look at Bank of America. So JP Morgan holding itself up higher from that nice little pivot last week up, that gap up, and then, gap and go, and it's holding up. That's a good sign. That really is a good sign. I would have thought that it's going to somehow sell off, but it's not. So keep this in mind as this sector is really getting much stronger than anticipated. Now looking at Bank of America, you see that nice move above $30, and that is really important. That's a developing new upwards trend. Now this is really very, very different than the way JP Morgan trades because it's not at a $100 interval, but it may have some follow through still in the upwards momentum, so keep an eye on it. Okay, it still has some upwards momentum to go. Look at the other stocks, not much doing. Okay, Facebook just retraced a little bit yesterday to 218. Again, this is to be expected. Now next week we've got lots of news coming out on the FANG stocks, so just be anticipating that. And lastly, let's take a look at Bitcoin trading and hanging out around that resistance supportish level at 29,000-ish level, and we're right there at 29,700-ish level. You can't see it so clearly, but we are there. Okay, all intents and purposes, it's still relatively strong until it's not, but it may have a breakout move today, either on the downside or the upside. And if you're a scalper, this is what you're looking for. Okay, you're looking for that volatility and fast moves. This is Fed Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.